I need to seek out somebody who's made it work, and then we need to be willing to be transparent in what we've done to make it work and what we've walked through.
Hello, friends. This is Susan Shull, your host for the Clean Heart Club podcast. I'm a farm wife, mom, Grammy, holy yoga teacher, and Christian life coach. Clean Heart Club is the place for you if you want to learn to live in abundance and walk in freedom to be 100% your true self. I can't wait to share with you guided meditations and sacred story interviews with some of my favorite people. Wherever you are on your path, I'm excited to join hands as we allow our loving Heavenly Father to clean up our hearts and we start living the adventure of our lives with joy and gratitude. This is going to be fun.
Hello, Clean Heart Club people. I'm so glad you're here for another episode of the podcast. I want to, first of all, thank Jeff and Michelle Michael for being on the most recent episode of the podcast, where we are exploring this month how to be married for a long time and still love one another at the end of it. I'm so excited to introduce you to our guests tonight. These two people are super special to us. Three people are super special to me. First of all, my husband, Brad. Some of you have met him on previous episodes. And then my cousin, Ted, and his wife, Debbie, who I also consider my cousin. I mean, we have been not only cousins, but also friends for our whole married life. So I thought it'd be fun if we all came together and just shared a little bit of what we've learned in being married almost 50 years, Lord willing. So welcome, Ted and Debbie. Let's just start by having you tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Okay. Well, I want to say, first of all, that Debbie is not actually your cousin, and I'm not married to your cousin. Okay.
Oh, is that
so
what
I just
said?
want to make yeah. So I just want to
that weird.
that we're not cousins, and my wife's not your cousin. But she's close to you.
Well, I mean, it is Jasper County. It was Jasper County. Come on.
I'll let Debbie introduce herself.
Well, I'm Debbie Rhoades, and I'm Ted and I will have been married 50 years in July 10th of this year. We have two daughters. Alicia is our oldest daughter, married to Tim, and they live in Nairobi, Kenya, and serve as missionaries there. Been there for 13 years. And Kim, our other daughter, is married to Nathan Gunter, and they have a son, Ethan, our only grandchild. And they live in Wichita, Kansas, where they pastor a church. I'm a retired nurse. I worked in surgery for 15 years and was a school nurse for 22 years and then retired. Now I'm just a pastor's wife, I guess, full time. Yeah.
Well, you had, before Ted takes the stand, you've had your own ministry in many ways. So would you tell us a little bit about that?
The ministry?
Ministry.
Yeah. Well, I've done a lot of mission trips to Africa, starting in 2006, I guess. I went to Niger, West Africa, with two other ladies. We served there with a missionary couple that was there serving with the Illinois Baptist mission team. And then I've been to Uganda and missed two different libraries of love. Went 7 times with that, and we put libraries in some of their public schools. And the children there have never seen books. They didn't have books to read, and we would go in and just bring books over. It's through an organization out of Austin, Texas. Trudy Marshall is her name, and she's gone since 2005 and still going and putting libraries in schools in both Uganda and Kenya. And then I went 2 trips with an organization called Mercy for Mamas, which did mama kits in Uganda. We went and did prenatal teaching, and we passed out these mama kits that the women had to have in order to be able to go into a clinic or a hospital to have their babies. If they didn't have their own supplies, they weren't able to do that. And so they were mostly delivering at home, or like they would have ladies come in and help that didn't really know what they were doing. So they were seeing a lot of mothers and babies dying in childbirth. So good friend of mine, Melissa Busby, started this organization, and we would go in and give these mama kits out to all the ladies who attended the seminars and stuff, conferences that we had. And then I've been to Zambia. We've done 3 mission trips there with people from our church. gone and worked on the seminary campus that Nathan was a part of when they served in Zambia for 6 years.
So we should throw in there that both of your daughters have been missionaries to Africa.
Yes, yes.
So
Yes.
did your love for Africa come after the girls were missionaries, or was it before?
It was before. It was before. Kim and Alicia went in 2012. Kim and Nathan went in 2018. You know, and I've been grateful for that because it was like we weren't sending them off to somewhere we had no idea. We both had been to Africa and we loved Africa. When God called them to that, it was like, I mean, it was hard to send them, but it was also, we knew the need was there. And so we were grateful that God was using them to be able to go and share, you know, with the people there. Grateful that he gave me the love first and then he sent them.
Okay.
Yeah,
Kim went to Niger when?
2005.
Yeah. So Kim went to Niger in 2005. And then Debbie, Kim, and Alicia went to Uganda before they even had started thinking about going to the mission field. I was kind of the late comer. I didn't go to Uganda until 2010. Have done several pastor conferences over there since that time.
So tell us about you, Ted.
Well, my name's Ted, and I'm a farrier or horseshoer, and I've been doing that for about 50 years, so I'm a bi-vocational pastor. I pastor Cornerstone Baptist Church, and I've been there for over 30, and it's a small community, about 1,800 people. Church runs about 200, somewhere around that neighborhood. We've had a really great fall. Since November 1st, we've had 31 people make decisions for Christ. We've baptized 17 or 18. We've got about 8 or 9 or 10 left to do. So it's been really, this fall has been something I've never experienced in all my years of ministry and stuff. So it's been really neat to see God doing something fantastic and letting us be a part of what he's wanting to do.
Yeah. So Ted and I talked last week or whenever it was to plan this, and you told me what was going on, and I asked you, I can't remember exactly how I worded it, but what were you doing? What do you think you were doing to make this happen? And I loved what you said. Do you remember what you said?
I said I felt that there wasn't anything that we had done to make it happen. We had been faithful. I think that's what I said, but
Yes.
you might remember it better.
No, that you made it clear that you didn't think it was anything you were doing, that you were doing the same things you've been doing, except you said you had the initiative to invite people.
Yeah, we started 12 weeks before the first Sunday in November. We had started a thing called Invite Your One. And so we invited the church to write names on index cards, and we put them in a basket on the table at the altar. And so every Sunday we prayed over that basket, and then the week before November, we invited all of those people to come. And we made a statement was, number one, I can't make them come. We can't save them. We can pray for them, and Jesus is their greatest need. And so that was the 4 things we kind of built that around. And we were successful if we invited somebody. We weren't successful if they came. We were successful if they invited somebody, because that's the only thing that we really could do. And so we probably had 300 people at church that Sunday morning, and had, I think, if I remember right, 10, maybe 12 people come forward that morning and make a decision and such. It was really overwhelming to have that many people come, kind of like when you weren't expecting it, and that stuff.
Wow, that's so cool.
Fantastic.
That's so cool.
If I could jump in here, for people who don't know the normal size of your attendance, there's some mega churches in the world, but 300 is a really high number for your small rural church, isn't it? What would have been, like 6 months ago, a typical Sunday morning for you guys, Ted?
Probably 125, 130, something of that nature. Yeah.
I want
and
to
been
point
pretty
that out
consistent.
because- Yeah.
That's so cool.
I think what you did was just a great idea, that simply invite.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
Invite and pray for them and just let God do the rest. Yeah,
Right.
there's an organization called Church Answers, and they say that 80% of all people who attend church come by a personal invitation. And And the reality is that very few of us actually ever invite somebody to come to church. And so we just made it purposeful. We just made a decision that we were going to bring it to your forefront, and we were going to make a focus on doing it.
Okay, let's switch gears and let's talk about marriage. So why do you think that two kids that got married when they were, I can't remember exactly how old you guys were, but early 20s?
I was 18. Yeah.
19 and 22.
19 and 22. How in the world did you guys manage to stay married for almost 50 years?
I'm curious to hear what Debbie says.
I think we just made this. Yeah, you might be. Yeah, I think we made a decision that no matter what, divorce was not an option. That we were going to, no matter what happened, we were going to have to figure out what we needed to do to fix it or to make it work. When you take that off the table, you maybe have to work a little bit harder, when things happen and it's not what you're expecting or you don't know what to do with. You have to work at making that. So we did things like when we got back in church and we got kind of right with God, I remember going to a marriage encounter weekend and we learned a lot there from that. And, maybe some things that we needed to do differently. And that did help because I feel like we probably came into marriage pretty unprepared and without maybe some good examples of what marriage should look like. So we really didn't know what we were doing, but we did do some deliberate things to learn how to make it work and to do the right things.
When you think back on those things, what did you learn at that marriage encounter? Because I'm guessing that what you learned then could help somebody now.
Might be putting them on the spot there.
Well, one of the first things we learned was at that time that we weren't as far apart as what we thought we were. Like we just really needed somebody to show us how to get focused. We felt like we were like a long ways away, but actually when we got to talking and we got to doing the lessons and doing the things that they asked us to do, we realized that we really weren't very far apart. We were a lot closer than we thought. One of the things that we did was we really never accomplished anything through communication in the first 5 or 6 years of our marriage. Usually they ended up in bigger fights, and I'd go to my corner, she'd go to her corner, and then we'd let a day or two pass and then we'd just go on and such. So one of the things we learned how to do was write letters. And so we, for probably a year, we didn't hardly talk to each other face to face until we had written a letter to each other. And so we wrote letters about, when you do this, it makes me feel like this, that kind of a situation. And then we talked only about what was in the letters. And the reason that was helpful was most couples, I do a lot of marriage counseling, and most couples that have problems never solve anything because they never stay focused on one issue at a time. And that was one thing that the marriage encounter did. It helped us learn how to settle something before we moved on to the next thing.
So not to just shove things under the rug and pretend like
Correct.
It was better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excuse me. Gosh, that would have been nice to know, wouldn't it?
Well, I was sitting here realizing that when you were writing these letters, Ted and Debbie, was that when you were living in Charleston and we were spending so much time together? It would
have been after that. We probably had been married. Well, we probably had been married 5, maybe 6 years when we went to that marriage encounter. Like there was a time at about maybe 5 to 7 years of marriage where we were not in very good shape. Marriage-wise. And, there was a lot of things going on in personal lives and such, but we were not in very good shape. And it kind of seemed to me like there was somebody that Debbie knew that had invited us to go, and we kind of went by reluctance. And now look back, and it was the greatest thing. To me, we're together today because of the handful of things they taught us in a 2.5 day weekend. And,
wow.
And stuff.
Wow, that's
we were living
in Charleston. We were living in the house that we bought there. Yeah. Yeah.
So we had
you guys moved since then.
I moved to Ohio because we were in Charleston for 5 years.
Yeah.
I'll throw this out there, that because maybe this might help somebody too, that we still do have different styles when it comes to handling conflict. And you tell me if you think this is right.
No.
I feel like I want to talk it out like right then. And Brad's more, not so much, maybe I'm not so much this way either now, but Brad's more of a.
I really think about it a while.
And that used to infuriate me.
Yeah.
And he would like not respond to my kind request to talk about something. And I would get madder than a wet hen. And we always eventually solved it. But if I had known then that it wasn't that he didn't care. It was that he needed time to process. He wanted to think about what he said, whereas I like to just say it. So I guess acknowledging you have different conflict styles is maybe something that could be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. And to understand that everybody has feelings about situations. And that's one of the things they really emphasized at that weekend was your feelings are neither right nor wrong. They just are what they are. But you need to be able to listen to the other person. You don't necessarily and not even maybe agree with how they feel, but you need to listen to what that situation or whatever, how it makes them feel, and then try to work through that, and talk it out. But we all have feelings about every situation. We just may have totally different feelings about it, and that's okay. But we need to be able to talk it through to try to understand where each person is coming from to know what to do with that then. So
I just did everything she said.
It works.
Whatever.
that is not true.
We didn't ever see necessarily fighting as an enemy, because having a disagreement or a fight usually got the communication started. And because we'd made a commitment for our marriage to last, then that meant we had to find a solution. And so we found out that, like, the fact that somebody got angry didn't necessarily mean that your marriage was in a bad spot. It just let you know what feelings that person was having about that topic at that moment and such. And it helped us then learn how to work through that and stuff. We're different in our, Debbie's a lot more compassionate, a lot more loving in a lot of ways than I am, but she would have a tendency to get angrier quicker than I do. I'm real, like, kind of low keyed as far as, like, and so things don't really, like, that stuff doesn't usually bother me as much. And so I stay more level headed in that and things, but I also sometimes then don't want to always talk about the situations that are taking place, or maybe support her feelings on that and stuff.
I might jump in here, and for those people who don't know our history, when Ted and Debbie got married and Susan and I got married a couple months after that, we all were living in Charleston, Illinois, and for roughly around 5 years. Well, I guess for 4 years, because I had been there working for a year before we got married. We were newlyweds, and we only lived a few blocks away from each other. And we spent most of our weekends, if we were both in Charleston, we spent most of our weekends at least spending one night watching TV until we all would fall asleep. And then somebody would go home, depending on whether we were at Debbie's and Ted Debbie's or at Brad and Susan's. And then they had their first daughter. We didn't have any children, but Alicia came along and brightened up our life. And we felt like we had a daughter too. It was really great. So having said all that, to kind of explain would you guys say, for people that might be listening, I think if what I'm hearing you say is that maybe even if you've been married for 4 or 5 years and your marriage has been really good, because I know you guys well enough to know that your marriage was really good those first 4 or 5 years. It doesn't mean that a marriage conference might not be helpful after 5 years for somebody that's been married for 5 years, and all of a sudden they're beginning to feel a little tension in the marriage, even a good marriage.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Because it could be somebody listening that might be in that spot.
That's true.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and I think sometimes we're not willing to receive instruction. You know, if you've got something that's falling apart, you need to maybe find somebody it's not falling apart, and then not judge them because well, criticizing everything they're doing, but recognizing that, their marriage is working and yours isn't. So maybe what you ought to do is just be quiet and listen to what that person has to say. And that was what the marriage encounter did for us for that weekend. We would never want to pretend or anything like that. We don't have disagreements. And, when you called us, Susan, and asked us about doing this, whatever, I think we were in a 2 or 3 day deal where we'd been having some pretty big discussions about some stuff, whatever. And so
Thank you.
So, I wouldn't want anybody to think that that just because you still love each other, you still enjoy being with each other, doesn't mean that there aren't some times that you don't have some pretty serious, conversations. But again, it doesn't mean that you're falling apart or you're not going to make it. It simply means that communication is the means by which change happens. And that's the thing that, that we've done over the years, not perfectly, but we've done is we've always been able to communicate through what needed to be changed. And of course, we've always lived with God at the center of our life and us being responsible to him. And so, I believe that if I'm not right with Debbie, then I'm also not right with God. And so if I'm going to be right with God, I've got to go get right with Debbie. There was a period of time, 40 years ago that was was kind of a hard lesson to learn, because a lot of times we want to pretend that everything's okay when in reality it wasn't and such.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say one of the things that we did early on was we realized that asking for forgiveness and giving forgiveness was going to be an important part of our relationship. If we were, Debbie says, I have a tendency sometimes to be grouchy. I don't know whether that's true or not, but she says that. So anyhow, if I would hurt her feelings or something, and I needed to apologize for that, I would go to her and I'd say, hey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And then Debbie would say back to me, what are you sorry for? And then I would have to repeat or have to say to her what I was sorry for. Now, I'm kind of slow, but when I went to ask her for forgiveness for the same thing over and over and over, I began to realize that I had a problem in that area. And it wasn't her problem, it was my problem. And so then that took me to God to begin to ask him to change my life. And we don't do that as much now as what we used to, because we don't really need to, because we automatically kind of own up to what it was that we've done wrong. You can say you're sorry and mean a lot of different things, and none of that ever bring reconciliation into your relationship.
That's really a really good point. Did you guys ever do the study by, I can't remember what his name is, but it's Love and Respect?
We did.
And then Jimmy Evans has a really good, we taught that to young couples in our church quite a few years ago. We taught that Bible study with them, and it was a really good one.
I thought that was really eye-opening. I'm thinking, golly, I think it was the grace of God that we sort of kind of naturally did that. But anyway, that he teaches and he uses scripture to prove that men need to be respected. That's really important. Mm-hmm. And women need to feel loved. It's really important.
Yeah.
It's different. We're just starting that. Kevin, our senior minister, just started that Love and Respect just 2 days ago, just last Sunday. And again, has a real nice, has a pretty big class. So we're glad to see that.
Yeah.
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 So if you were going to give advice,
it is. Yeah.
If you're going to give advice, and you probably do this because you said you do a lot of marriage counseling, what advice would you give to a newlywed couple today?
Don't. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
No, I'm just kidding. I'll let you go first.
Well, and I was just thinking back to when we were kind of getting our marriage together, with the marriage encounter weekend. But also, the thing that we did was we had really not been faithful going to church. We went down and went with Grandma and Granddad, but that was maybe twice a month if we did that. And When we finally knew that we needed to find a church home to get settled in where that was ours to go, our home, church home. I felt like our lives began to change because we began to sit under good, consistent biblical teaching and realizing that for it to work, we had to both let God just change us. We spent a lot of time like trying to change the other person and then them trying to change us. And it was like when God changes you, the other person usually changes as well. But the important thing was for you to become what God wanted you and needed you to be. And so when we got consistently back in church and really made God the center of our marriage, that really changed a lot of how we handled things too, I think. So I think for us, that's very important that, God's at the center and you're always learning and growing and maturing and becoming more what God wants you to be. So.
Good, great.
And
point.
I think sometimes you're in different seasons of your life. And so there's going to be different things that you're going to need for your marriage to be successful. One of the things I tell couples that are just getting married or just gotten married is I think they need to always remember what it was that attracted them to each other. You might, a lot of times, it's like, well, she was beautiful or whatever and such. And if you're a guy, I think you ought to remember that. I mean, guys are more attracted to the physical beauty. The girls usually more attracted to like the character and that such of whatever and things. But I think you need to always remember that. I tell when I'm doing a wedding and the doors are beginning to open and the bride is getting ready to walk in, I always say to the groom, turn and look and capture this picture in your mind. You want to be able to remember this moment for years to come, because sometimes, just like I said to you, we thought we were really a long ways apart after about 7 years of marriage and such, when really what was a long ways apart was we were unable to communicate where we were. We really were closer than what we thought we were, but we didn't know how to communicate that to one another to do that and such. I mean, I believe, and I think Debbie believes this also, I believe that God providentially brought us together. Debbie is from Beardstown, Illinois. I grew up basically in Ohio, and, we didn't have any idea that either one of us were even alive on the face of the earth. We met through some mutual friends. I won't give all the details of where we were and how we met, whatever, but we weren't really walking with God at that time. Debbie wasn't even saved yet, whatever. I wasn't walking with God at all at that time or whatever. And I met her, and I remember I told my cousin, not Susan, but one of my other cousins, I told him that I don't know who she is, but I'm going out with her. And me and him, we followed her and her friend home so I could remember where she lived. And then another night, that next week or so, I drove back to the town where she lived, and I walked up to the door. I knocked on the door, and she opened the door, and her first words to me that night was, "My knight in shining armor has finally come."
No. Wait.
No. What she really said was,
Who are you?
"What in the world are you here?" That's what she really said.
That happened today. She might call the cops.
Yeah, I was talking. Cleveland was in northwestern kind of Illinois. I'm in Ohio, and God made certain that our lives intersected and our lives came together. And so knowing that or believing that kind of played a major impact in staying together and moving forward, because I believe that God brought us together because of the ministry he was wanting to do through us and stuff. And we complement each other in a lot of ways. Debbie's more detailed, more organized and such. I'm unorganized and detailed in some areas, but not overall. So we just complement each other in our ministries and things. And Debbie's a lot more like out in the forefront in the ministry now than she was when we first started. But with me being bi-vocational, there's a lot of things that she does that I would have to do if she didn't do them, and she's happy to do those kind of things. And so our ministry just works together and stuff. And we really are a team about that and stuff. And we've had a great ministry. I think the ministry's helped our marriage. You know, the ministry and the people. Sometimes when you talk to other people about their problems, it has a way of reflecting back to you on what you need to change, what's maybe going on in your life and stuff. And so I think that's made a big difference in our lives and things.
How can I word this? What advice would you give to who have like a husband or wife who works a ton of hours? Because you had to have been working a ton of hours if you were full-time farrier and a full-time pastor. And this one also worked a ton of hours as a banker and a farmer. How would you?
And you were a full-time teacher.
Yeah, and Debbie was a full-time nurse. How can you handle that? How did we handle it?
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah, I really don't remember it being a real problem. It was what it was. And so we just figured out how to make it work. You know, like I don't remember really having, I mean, I know in some families it is a real problem. Yeah. We just seemed to make it work and figured it out. Ted could be a little bit flexible with his horseshoeing for some things that he needed to. We just worked together to make it work out, you know, so that we could do everything with all the kids and all their sports and, you know, the church and, you know, working. I look back and think, I really don't know how we did it, because that was a lot. That's a good question, because there was a lot of time and things going on at the same time, but we just somehow made it work.
Well, I think
for myself, one thing is,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was thinking like for us that people talk about trying to live a balanced life. I really don't know how you do that. Maybe some people can, but we couldn't, because my occupation, my horseshoeing, it had seasons with it. So like from April till November, you were extra busy. You had show season, you had all, and so I've got probably 200 head of horses or so that I take care of. And I have horses that are like $1,000 horses. I have some horses that I do that are like $200,000 horses. So all of that was just what you had to do and such. One of the things that, in thinking about that, one of the things that I appreciate the most about Debbie is her interdependence, meaning that she didn't always need me to be able to do what needed to be done. And yet at the same time, we were dependent upon each other, if that makes sense. Like she could go with the girls, do what needed to be done, and then we would come together in the evenings and talk, and we would be dependent upon each other as we were going forward. And I think that helped, because maybe she wasn't as needy as some people are, and so I was able to do that. But if we couldn't have done that, I'd had to found a different job, because you know, horseshoeing is just one of those jobs that takes a lot of time. If you're not working, you're not making any money. And so, you know, if you kind of like the money, you've got to do the work and stuff.
I was going to ask them.
Yeah.
One thing thinking back when we were just crazy busy and the kids were little, is that we kept having dates. Did you guys have date nights even when you didn't have time? Because I think that really helped us.
I think it did too.
You know, I don't remember like purposely doing that and such. I remember us knowing that we just needed to have time for each other. And that might mean that your kids went to bed at 8:30 or at 9 or so, and then you like cut the TV off and spent some time just talking to each other and finding out what was going on and that type of stuff. And I think that was more for us and such. Date nights would have been too organized for us. I mean, and I like it that people do that, but that really just wouldn't have fit our schedule, because it wouldn't have worked for us and such. But somehow or another, we made that closeness be there and work, even though it wasn't always as organized as what maybe it could have been and stuff.
Nobody has a carefree life. And as you look back on hard seasons, how did you maneuver those? Because sometimes hard seasons create wedges and people never recover. Resonate at all?
Well, I'm thinking about hard seasons. I really don't.
Let
Well,
me jump in and
I
let you
think for
guys
us,
think about
after,
that a minute.
okay,
Go ahead. I'll let you think about that a minute and share that something that's made a big difference for Susan and I in our marriage, and Ted and Debbie know this, is that we came from different church theologies, not drastic differences, but some differences. And
Right.
when we first got married, we were like Ted and Debbie. We weren't connected with a specific church. We were trying out different churches, and we went for several years, maybe 7, 8.
Longer than I'd like to admit.
Yeah, where we couldn't seem to get on the same page. And when we finally got on the same page, it was a tremendous game changer for us. I think our marriage got even stronger. Well, I know it did. And so I think that's real important for all of us, no matter if we've been married 1 year or 50, is to be on the same page in our walk. You guys have good friends. We have good friends where that's not the situation. And it makes it more difficult, doesn't it? It really does.
it does.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
throw that in as just a thought for anybody that might be looking to work on that. I would encourage you to work on it, because it will make a big difference if you can get that worked out. Took us a few days.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
it took
Yeah.
some give and take on both our parts.
Give and take on both of our. Yeah.
We had to both admit
Right.
that maybe we
Yeah.
were
Right.
wrong about something.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true. We have to.
Yeah.
You know, again, I think once we kind of got things like moving in the right direction, the going through the hard seasons of life were just kind of, I guess, somewhat natural. They were just a part of life, and we just went through them. I'm pretty fortunate that the church I pastor now, not that it's always great, but the people that I have now that I pastor, they're really great people, and they're really easy to pastor. I've not always been in those kind of situations, whatever, and such. But I think one of the things that helped was I knew that when I came home, Debbie was always on my team, you know, and not that she always agreed with me, and not that she wouldn't tell me when she didn't agree with me. She would tell me. I mean, she wasn't like, you know, a yes person or something like that, but I knew that even if she didn't agree with me, she was still on my team. And so as long as I had them, then I was in pretty good shape. But also in ministry, I found out that like I had problems in my horseshoeing business. So I began to realize that it didn't matter what you did in life, there were going to be difficult times and difficult seasons. It wasn't, you know, sometimes guys in ministry think that just because they're going through a hard time in ministry, that like it's something abnormal. Well, it's only abnormal because you're the guy in ministry and not everybody is. But you just have problems in life. That's just part of life. And so Susan, our granddad, told me one time when I was a kid growing up, he said, sometimes you just got to shut your mouth and move forward. And sometimes in ministry, or sometimes in hard times in your marriage and in everything, sometimes the best thing to do is just shut up and move forward. And just keep moving forward. And next thing you know, you finally made it through that season of life, and then life is good again and stuff. And so I don't know if that is kind of what you're thinking, but that's kind of what I would think about our seasons of life.
Add something.
Yes, you can add something.
I'll add something to what Ted just commented on. And he mentioned that his church there his church family is solid. And, you know, you talk about how you get through the difficult times. I think you guys would probably agree that not only is getting on the same page with your spouse theologically and getting connected together at a good church, but your church family can be so much help when those tough times come.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we have both.
Right.
We're now, you know, at our age now, we're among the older ones at our congregation. But, you know, when we were younger and the boys were little and we were raising a family, I know we were we were watching, some of those rocks, at our church that were such great examples, sort of mentoring us, and tremendous help when you see somebody living the way they should live when they're having problems and handling their problems the way they should be handled with the Lord's help. It's tremendous to benefit to have a 50-year marriage. If you've got a church family that's witnessing to you, and you can learn so much from them. And we're so blessed to still have that. And now what's interesting for us is now we are really enjoying, and we talk about this, as we watch the younger couples with the little kids who are on fire for the Lord in our church. It's just inspiring to us to see that, hey, there's, as we pass the torch, there's another generation that's going to take the torch, and they already have. And it's really encouraging to us, even after 50 years of marriage, to see that happening.
So do you guys?
I think it's a good idea always to look around. If you're young in your marriage and you need help, being willing to ask for it and to look around and find those people that can give you some wise advice. But also think as couples, it's a good thing to be transparent about where you've come from and what like the questions you've asked. What have you done to make it work? So we have to be willing to share. Sometimes we want to not share some of the icky stuff that we've gone through because we don't like people to know that we did it. But I think that's the thing that helps people, is to know we're not the only ones that have been through this, and we're not alone in doing this. I need to seek out somebody who's made it work, and then we need to be willing to be transparent in what we've done to make it work and what we've walked through. I remember going through some real hard times with one of our children, and just being willing to say to people, okay, I'm just telling you, we've not done it perfectly, but here's some things that we've figured out that we needed to do to make this better, and being transparent with people and saying, we don't have it all together, even as a pastor and his wife, we don't have it all together either. But this is the things that we've done, that we've made it work, and it's turned out, it turned out better. So I think the transparency on both sides is really important.
I so agree. So looking back, 50 years has gone like that. I feel like, how did we, I mean, it still seems like just last Saturday night, we were watching Steve Martin on Saturday Night Live and having pizza in Charleston.
Eating pizza.
Yeah.
And now here we are, both getting ready to celebrate our 50th wedding anniversary. What do you like about, how is old love a blessing?
Well, you go first.
Okay,
I'll go first.
I'm going to come up with something. I'm kidding.
Chat GPT.
Where's the phone?
I'll try to stop this here. To me, one of the things about growing old together is you have a lot of memories that you can talk back about. You can share, and you can talk about when you've been there and you've done this. And, we've been at the same church for 30 years. That makes a big difference, whatever and such. Sometimes it's just like liking to be with each other. We don't always have to be talking. Sometimes just being with each other is, good enough. It's just your presence, whatever, just having you there. And so for me, again, I preach young. If I can say it that way, I preach young. I still have as much fire inside of me tonight at 69 as I did at 39. And I have just as much a fire for the future. Now, when I think about, growing old, I think I'm running out of time to preach some things that I'd like to preach. I think one of the things that helps us is we've not lost sight of the future, in the sense that we still have something to offer and things. And so to me, I think that's one of the things that's helped our love grow stronger in things. When Debbie first started going to Uganda, I said to her, probably 10 years or so ago, I said to her, if you want to make a ministry of this, I will give up the church and just shoe horses and make enough money for you to do it. If that's what you want to do. So it's like, it's just a part of being excited about what the other person is doing. And the fact of the matter is, it was just like my mom and dad. Debbie and I would have gotten a divorce years ago. My mom and dad would have taken her in before they would have me. And I think my church is the same way. They would before they would keep me and stuff. So we've just enjoyed times with one another, even though it's not. I don't hesitate in saying that because I don't want somebody who's struggling to come away with the idea that like we don't ever have any troubles or whatever, because we still do. I mean, we still have imperfections, in our lives that clash, and we still have those difficulties, but we are able to work through those things now, where 40 years ago, maybe we had a harder time working through those and stuff. So what do you think about old love, Debbie?
Well, I think we still enjoy just being with each other. I mean, we're comfortable with each other. There's a friendship there besides the love, that's really important, I think. And I always know that Ted, he's going to take care of me. He's on my team and he's going to take care of me no matter what we're facing. And he's very supportive of anything I want to do. So I think I just feel like we're just comfortable with one another. That's maybe we've just grown old together and we're just comfortable where we are, so.
Is he your favorite person?
Most days. Yeah. Most days he is. Yeah.
Goodness. Okay. So
now, wait, you didn't answer that question.
Well, we're interviewing them.
You need to answer that question too.
Okay.
Just say anything.
Okay.
I'm sure they would like to ask you the same question.
My favorite thing about old love is very similar to what you said. It's just, I really like Brad still. I love Brad.
Please. Yes.
I would rather do, everything's more fun for me if he's there.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
Right.
How about you?
Well, same thing. And we just had a trip completely fall apart, and I'll make it brief, but we were going to be gone 3 weeks and we were going to go through the Rockies. This was 3 weeks ago. Going to go through the Rockies and then down into Utah, to the national parks, and then down into Arizona. And as we were leaving, I was feeling a little bit off. Long story short, as we went to the Rockies, I kept feeling worse. And after 2.5 days of driving, when we got to Denver, I was pretty sick. And then a snowstorm hit the Rockies.
Winter storm warnings everywhere.
Out of clear blue. So we turned around and drove back home. So we basically, and I was worse coming home. So we were basically in the car on Interstate 70 for 5 days. And I was sick. And when we got home, we talked about the fact that in spite of that complete disaster, we had enjoyed each other's company. And we'd had a good time, which I think kind of is what you guys are saying. We still just like to be together.
Yeah.
And we have some fun memories of the trip. There is a few things to see in Kansas. Everybody says there's not, but that's not true.
That's not true. That's not true.
It's a nice state. I like Kansas.
Okay, this has been going on for an hour, and people, that's probably long enough. So let's end with this question. What sounds like fun?
What sounds like fun?
What would sound like fun? Yes. For us to do together?
Or separately?
Okay. You go first.
Well, I like traveling with Ted. Like, I love going, like, when we go to, like, Kenya to see the kids, or when Kim and Nathan were in Zambia to travel together and spend time with them there. We travel well together, I think. We have a little problem with boarding the plane when we do that, but other than that, we really travel well together, and it's fun to go. We both love Africa, so it's really fun to go and spend time there and with the kids and just see what they're doing. And it's always been, for me, it's always been just a real joy that my children could go halfway around the world and do life well. Probably better than I feel like I would ever do. It's just been a real joy. So when we go spend time with them and just see them doing life as they do it there, I just really enjoy that. So we're hopefully planning a trip to Kenya in December around Christmas time to go see Tim and Alicia. So that's fun to me.
Yeah.
For me, like Debbie Rhoades and the kids included, is probably 10 years ago, maybe not that long ago, but probably 10 years ago, we quit giving Christmas gifts, and I wanted to give money to make memories. And so we tried to, over that period of time, we would come as a whole family to either Kenya or to Zambia, or we would meet somewhere and then we would go somewhere. And it doesn't bother me to work hard to earn the money to help us to be able to do that. I want to give my kids money so when they fly home, they can go to places like Greece or Turkey, or go somewhere and see something as they're on their way home from Kenya to the States and such. And so for me, I don't have like any particular place that I want to go. For me, it's just being with my family. This last Christmas, they were all home at our house. And, when you take pictures at Christmas and that kind of stuff, I took a picture of the pile of shoes at the back door. And I told Debbie, I said, that's my favorite picture because that means that they're all here. And so for me, that's for me what a good time is for us all to be together. And however that has to take place, that's what I want to do and stuff. So
good. And that's the fruit of being married for 50 years.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we're able to do stuff without the other person. Like, I never say to Debbie, if she wants to go on a mission trip, I never say to her, well, you want to be gone 2 weeks or whatever. Now, she has a little harder time going and leaving me because I can't cook. So she has to figure everything out, so I can survive the time that she's gone and such. But I would never think about saying to her, like, making her feel guilty or anything like that about going. I would be like her biggest cheerleader to whatever I had to do in my schedule to make it happen for her. I would be willing, to do that and such. And so for me, that's what a good time is, making memories with my family rather than giving gifts per se, like that they would open or something.
That's sweet. Okay. So I always like to ask our guests to pray for our listeners. So would one of you like to do that?
Sure. Yeah. Dear Father, thank you for loving us, and thank you for the life that you've given us. We thank you for the blessings that you've given us. And Lord, people that are listening to this podcast, and hopefully they'll listen to the end, we pray, Father, that the Holy Spirit would speak to them and encourage them. There's a lot of couples whose really their marriages, they feel like they're struggling in them. And I just pray, Father, that you would help them to find answers, solutions. Lord, be the one who opens a door and finds them somebody to help them walk through those problems or those difficulties such. And I pray that you would help the joy of what you intended marriage to be to return to our nation and to our churches as the bedrock of where our strength would come from. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today on the Clean Heart Club podcast. I hope that you were blessed and learned some things that will help you on your journey. Let's remember this truth from Psalm 28:7. The Lord is my strength and shield. I trust him with all my heart. He helps me, and my heart is filled with joy. I burst out in songs of thanksgiving. Did you know I wrote a course for you? It's called the Clean Heart Club and contains 10 video teachings about some of my favorite life coaching concepts, which are so helpful. You're also invited to come join the fun in the Clean Heart Club group on Facebook and sign up to receive my weekly newsletter of encouragement. Let's be friends. See you next time.